Welcome back to OTT Sports. I'm Michael Broughton.
And I'm Mark Panis.
And Mark, don't say it out too loudly. I don't think anyone is really paying much attention. Whisper it under your breath. There's something going on with Chinese investment in sports. So 6-7 years ago, MP and Silver acquired, Infront acquired, Ironman acquired, a bunch of football teams across the European continent acquired. China was big on sport, and part of it was, we want to host a World Cup, and we're interested in building out sports as a play. But almost everywhere you look, even though it's not getting a lot of coverage, there is a flight of capital back to China, and it's having an impact on European sports. What are you seeing from across the pond? Well,
there's clearly some havoc that's being wrought right now by this flight of capital of Chinese investment. It's probably, not top of mind because there's just so much other pressing news seemingly from the pandemic. But if you look at it, in France, the collapse of the MediaPro media rights deal, which was, MediaPro's Spanish company owned by a Chinese concern, that's going to have ripple effects in League One, the top French league, for years. Italy, acquisition of AC Milan and Inter Milan by Chinese investors. AC Milan defaulted almost immediately and is now owned by Elliott Capital, a private equity firm, and we've discussed that previously on OTT Sports. And then Inter today is owned by Suning. They say nothing is going to change in terms of its management, but Suning just shuttered its Chinese Super League champion team, the reigning champions that they control. And then you get to the UK, you've got West Brom, you have Southampton, these clubs are now for sale. Those stakes are being sold. This is destabilizing. And that type of destabilization in any type of sport where you have a potential for relegation is no good.
Right. And ultimately, look, when they came in, their cost of capital was so low that we couldn't compete, right? Whether you were a British investor, American investor, you couldn't compete because they were effectively borrowing from the state. So if you were looking at it through an economic lens, like you or I have done in the past, as investors on the West Coast most certainly would, you're looking at it through, like, what's my return? What's my return on capital? What's my return on investment? How am I going to deploy this? Basically, how do I get my investors to re-up on me in the future? They didn't have that. So also they sometimes overpaid on price, but it feels like it was a political move coming in. It's now a political move going out again.
Sure. Well, you mentioned the West Coast. We like to think of the business politics continuum in sports. Really, on one end, you have the West Coast of the U.S. There's no really 100% business, no real regulatory environment. It's games, matches, events, races, tournaments. By the time you get to the East Coast, probably 75% business, 25% regulatory. I mean, the league offices are there, regulatory oversight by Congress, so forth. Across the pond to the UK, 50-50. You start to see the Blazers appear and the Prawn Sandwich Brigade, and different types of governance. But it's still, the EPL is still massively business driven. Onto the continent, France, Italy, Spain, 60-40 politics to business, where, there are forces that move that sometimes make no sense from a business standpoint, but that drive those sports. And then you get to the east and you get to Russia and China, man, it's 100% politics, right? Until it's not, until you get to something like a pandemic, and all of a sudden P&Ls matter, and now you see a flight of capital.
Right. Well, Mark, I don't believe you saw any politics during your time in Italy. It just was purely an economic play. But yeah, look, I think you're right. From an Olympics, from bidding for World Cups, sport is a big political play, particularly for nations like China. Sure. I don't think we've seen the end of their investment in sports, both in China and internationally. Right now, there's a flight of capital. We may see it come back, but I'm sure we'll dig into this further. So, follow us on YouTube, join us in Clubhouse, and from everyone at OTT Sports, thank you for watching.